Have you ever noticed sand? Imagine a world without sand. I don't think you can. Welcome, friend. In just a few moments, the screen will quietly fade to black. There is nowhere else to be. Nothing to keep track of. No rules to follow. Nothing to remember. And nothing to solve. Just a little while set aside for noticing things. Our journey begins. Imagine wandering through the quiet world of sand. You find yourself standing beside a quiet shore. A lighthouse glows in the distance. The tide moves softly against the sand, and waiting nearby, resting upon a smooth stone pedestal, is something extraordinary. An old golden hourglass. Its polished frame catches and reflects the last gentle light. Within the crystal clear glass, countless tiny grains shimmer like pieces of starlight. Some journeys begin with a map, others begin with a road, and some begin with something still smaller. One single grain of sand. The shore is quiet. Waves arrive without hurry. They slide gently across the sand and quietly return to the sea. The hourglass rests upon its pedestal nearby. Its tiny stream of shining grains continue to fall with perfect patience. The lighthouse keeper stands not far away. He seems content simply to watch. He has no need to rush the tide, or the wind, or the hourglass. Near your feet is a single grain of sand. It's almost too small to notice, so light that the gentlest breeze could carry it away, so tiny that thousands of grains could rest upon your fingertip, and yet this little grain has traveled farther than most of us ever will. Long before it became sand, it may have been part of a mountain so old that forests grew, rivers changed course, and generations of people came and went. While the mountains simply stood beneath the sky, year after year, the wind visited, rain visited, winter, summer, little by little, almost too slowly to notice. The mountain began to change. A tiny piece broke away, then another, and another. The stone became smaller. The smaller stone became a pebble. And the pebble became something smaller still, until one day it became a single grain of sand. Perhaps that very grain now rests before you. Or perhaps it began somewhere entirely different. Not every grain of sand comes from a mountain. Some once formed part of a coral reef beneath warm blue waters. Others were tiny seashells. Many began their journey inside ancient volcanoes. Some have traveled in rivers, and some have crossed deserts on the wind. Every grain of sand has a story. Every grain has taken its own path, and no two journeys are exactly the same. Now imagine another grain resting beside the first, then another, and another. Soon there are more grains than you could ever count, enough to fill your hand, or a bucket, enough to build a castle, or cover an entire beach. Every great shoreline, peaceful dune, and vast desert began exactly the same way. One grain beside another. There's something comforting about that. The largest things are often built from the smallest beginnings. Not all at once. Not in a hurry. Simply one grain, then another, and another. You look back toward the hourglass. Its golden sand continues to fall with quiet certainty. Never rushing, never stopping, never wondering how much farther it has to go. Simply falling, just one grain at a time. The hourglass continues its quiet work. One tiny grain slips gently into the lower glass, then another. The keeper smiles as though he has watched this peaceful rhythm 1,000 times before. Perhaps he has. He picks up the old brass compass and turns it slowly in his hand. The needle settles. Not with urgency, simply with quiet certainty. He nods toward the shoreline. The beach beneath your feet is warm and golden. The grains of sand are soft and inviting. Each step leaves a gentle footprint behind you. The waves are in no particular hurry. They ebb and flow in a pattern only they understand. Eventually, they reach your footprints. One by one, each impression becomes a little softer, a little shallower, until the sand is smooth once again. It is difficult to say exactly where one wave ends and another begins. Perhaps time is a bit like that, always moving, never rushing, never slowing, just moving along with quiet deliberation. Inevitable. Not all beaches are the same. On some beaches, the sand often feels a little coarser beneath your feet. The grains are larger, more rounded, as though they have spent lifetimes traveling together. Walk along another beach and the sand often feels finer, warmer beneath the morning sun, comfortable to stroll upon for hours. There are beaches on distant islands where the sand is so soft that people compare it to powdered sugar. Each step seems to disappear almost as quickly as it was made. The sea beside it glows with impossible shades of blue, as though the sky itself had decided to become water. On the other side of the world, some beaches are as black as night. Their sand was born from ancient volcanoes. The tiny dark grains quietly remembered rivers of glowing lava that flowed long before anyone walked those shores. Across oceans there are beaches with sand in gentle shades of pink. Tiny fragments of coral and shells have slowly blended together over countless years. Green-colored sand can even be found in a few quiet places. Tiny crystals resting patiently beside the sea. Every beach tells a different story, yet each one begins exactly the same way. One grain, then another, and another. Some beaches stretch for hundreds of miles. Others are small hidden coves. Some welcome rolling waves. Others rest beside quiet lakes where the water barely whispers against the shore. Some beaches are visited by thousands of people. Others belong only to seabirds, crabs, and the gentle rhythm of the tide. The keeper pauses beside a weathered piece of driftwood. He looks out across the water without saying a word. There's nothing that needs to be explained. The sea has always understood sand, and the sand has always understood the sea. You take one last look along the shoreline. Each grain, every shell, footprint, and wave, all part of the same quiet conversation, one that has been taking place for longer than anyone can remember. The keeper turns and walks away. You quietly follow. The shoreline grows quieter. The keeper has wandered a little farther ahead. His footsteps leave gentle impressions in the sand. The tide quietly follows behind him, not chasing, simply soothing the shoreline once again. As you watch the waves, you notice someone else walking along the beach. She moves slowly, never hurrying. Every few steps, she pauses. Occasionally, she bends down to look more closely at something. Sometimes she simply smiles before continuing on. She carries a small woven basket over one arm. It's beautifully made. Simple, comfortable to hold. Already it contains a handful of little treasures. A smooth white shell, a piece of pale blue sea glass, a tiny feather, a rounded stone polished by the sea. She kneels beside the water's edge and gently lifts another shell from the sand. She turns it over in her hands, smiles, and places it carefully into the basket. Every discovery brings her the same quiet happiness, whether it is large or small, common or rare. You find yourself wondering what makes something a treasure. Is it because it's valuable, or because someone cared enough to notice it? A little farther along the beach, sunlight catches something half hidden beneath the sand. It glimmers softly. The girl notices it too. She kneels once again, using her fingertips. Little by little, she brushes away the sand until a small golden coin rests in the palm of her hand. It is old, beautiful. Its surface shines warmly in the afternoon light. She peers at it for a moment, then smiles just as she smiled when she found the shell. No more and no less. The coin joins the shell. The shell keeps its place beside the sea glass. The sea glass rests beside the feather beside the smooth stone. No treasure is greater than another. Each one tells the story of a happy moment. The keeper pauses nearby. He notices the coin and the shell, then the basket. He smiles quietly as though he understands that the basket is already full, not because it holds many things, but because every object inside has been chosen with gratitude. The girl continues walking. Now and then she discovers another little surprise. A tiny spiral shell, a piece of driftwood shaped like a bird, a small pebble with a perfect circle upon its surface, a fragment of green glass softened by many years beneath the waves. None of these things would appear in a museum. Most people would walk right past them. Not everyone sees the same treasures. You begin looking more carefully too. Soon you notice things you might never have seen before. A shell with delicate ridges, tiny patterns left behind by the tide, a feather resting lightly upon the sand, sunlight sparkling inside a drop of water. It seems the beach has always been full of treasures. The only difference is that now you are noticing them. The girl reaches the end of a little stretch of shoreline. She closes the lid of her basket, not because it is full, but because she has found enough for today. Tomorrow, the sea will have new treasures waiting, and there will always be another quiet walk, another happy discovery, another reason to smile. The keeper continues along the shore. The girl follows beside him. You quietly follow too, leaving only gentle footprints behind. The shoreline widens. The tide has drawn itself gently back from the beach, leaving a broad, smooth stretch of sand behind. The surface of the sand glows softly in the light. It's still damp near the water, but dry farther up from the shore, marked here and there by footprints, tiny shells, and the delicate trails of small shore creatures. Not far ahead there is a sandcastle, a small one, simple. A few uneven towers, a crooked wall, a shallow moat, a shell pressed into the tallest tower like a window. Whoever built it has gone home, but the castle remains for a little while longer, holding its shape beneath the open sky. You pause beside it. There is something touching about the little castle, not because it's perfect, but because it was made with care. A hand once pressed wet sand into that wall. A finger traced the line of that moat. Someone searched for the little shell and chose exactly where it should go. For a little while, the beach became a kingdom. There were towers where there had been no towers, walls where there had been no walls, a gate, a road, a courtyard, a window made from a shell. All of it imagined into being, grain by grain, handful by handful. The little castle sits quietly waiting for nothing in particular. Farther along the shore there are more structures. Some are no larger than a basket. Others are tall and delicate. A few have bridges made of driftwood and shells. Some have paths of tiny pebbles leading toward their gate. One has a moat that still holds a little water from the sea. Another has a row of shells arranged like lanterns along the wall. Each one is different. Each one has been dreamed into shape. And each one will change. Not because anything is wrong, only because the tide always returns. The first small wave reaches the nearest moat. It does not crash. It simply arrives. The water still fills the shallow circle, then slips away again. Another wave follows. A tower softens. A wall settles. The shell window loosens and rests gently on the sand. Soon the castle is no longer a castle, only a softer place on the beach, a memory of careful hands. And somehow, nothing has truly been lost. The joy of building remains. The cool feeling of wet sand remains. The moment remains. Some things are made to last, and some things are made to be loved for only a little while. You continue on. Behind you, the little castles slowly return to the shore. Ahead, the beach begins to change. At first, the difference is barely noticeable. The sand rises just a little. A soft ridge, then another. Low beach dunes gather beyond the reach of the tide. They are held together by grasses with pale green blades and roots hidden deep below. The ocean is still beside you. The waves are still there, but their sound is beginning to soften. You walk between the dunes. The sand feels warmer here, drier. The footprints you leave are lighter than before, less distinct. The beach grasses lean in the breeze. Their shadows stretch across the sand in long, quiet lines. A small bird lifts from the grass and disappears beyond the ridge. You climb one dune slowly. At the top, you turn and look back. The shoreline is still visible. The water glimmers in the distance. The beach castles are too far away to see clearly now. They may still be standing, or they may already be smooth sand again. It makes no difference. The dune slopes downward. You follow it. The sound of the sea grows even softer. The air changes too. less salty, more warmth, more stillness. The grasses grow farther apart. The sand becomes finer beneath your feet. A ridge rises ahead, then another, and another. You're not sure when the beach becomes something else. Perhaps it has not happened yet. Or perhaps it happened several moments ago. The dunes continue, taller now, wider. Their curves catch the light in long bands of gold and shadow. The world becomes quieter with each step. The sea is behind you now. The sound of it is a distant memory. Perhaps it was never there at all. The wind moves over the dunes, lifting a few grains, setting them down again, lifting others, placing them farther away. The dunes are traveling, so slow that they seem still, so quietly that they seem eternal. Drifting, both the dunes and you. It is difficult to say which. Time seems to loosen here. A few minutes may have passed, or an afternoon, or eons. The sky widens. The shadows lengthen. The light grows deeper. The beach dunes have become desert dunes. No doorway marks the change, no border or sign, only sand, more sand, and sky. The ridges rise like waves that have forgotten the sea. You move across them without hurry, up one golden slope, down another, across a hollow where the air is still and warm, along a ridge where the wind brushes softly past. The sand carries no urgency. It does not care whether it is called beach or desert. It simply changes shape, one grain at a time. Far ahead, something rises from the horizon. At first, it's only a line, then an angle, then a shape so simple it feels almost like a thought. A triangle against the sky, then another, and another. Pyramids. They seem to have been waiting there all along, not appearing suddenly, not arriving, simply becoming visible, as though the sand has finally chosen to reveal them. You continue toward them. The light is lower now. The desert glows in shades of gold, amber, rose, and blue. The pyramids grow larger with each step. Their edges are softened by distance. Their stones are warm with the last of the sun. They are not like the sandcastles on the shore, and yet they belong to the same dream. Both began with imagination. Both were shaped by hands. Both rose from the sand. One lasted until the tide returned. The other has remained through thousands of tides of time. Sunrise after sunrise, season after season, century after century. The pyramids have stood while sand gathered around their bases, then drifted away, then gathered again. They have watched the stars change position in the sky, shadows stretch and shorten, travelers come and go, and still they stand. You reach the base of the nearest pyramid. The stones are enormous, larger than they seemed from a distance. Each one rests upon another with patience that feels almost alive. You place your hand against the surface. The stone is warm from the sun, rough in some places, but smooth in others. Tiny grains of sand rest in the spaces between the blocks. A little dune has gathered where two stones meet, small enough to fit in your palm. A tiny desert at the foot of a monument. The sight of it is strangely beautiful. Something vast and something small, both made meaningful by being noticed. A figure stands in the shade near the entrance. For a moment, he seems to be the lighthouse keeper. Then, in the golden desert light, he seems older than that. His long coat is gone, or perhaps the light has changed it. He wears pale linen that moves gently in the wind. At his side hangs the compass. Still there, still familiar. He does not speak. He does not need to. He only turns towards the narrow entrance. The path is clear. You hesitate only for a moment. Then you step inside. The air changes. The warmth of the desert falls behind you. Inside, the air is cool and still. The wind fades. The sky disappears. The passage is narrow. Stone rises on either side. The ceiling feels low enough to make every movement slower. Each step becomes deliberate. Your footsteps echo gently. One step, then another, and another. A long ribbon of golden light stretches in from the entrance behind you. It lies across the stone floor, growing fainter as the passage turns inward. Sand has gathered along the edges of the walls. A few grains here, a little drift there. The desert has found its way inside. Not all at once or dramatically, but through patience. A grain blown through a crack or carried on a sandal. One grain slipping from stone to stone. Almost nothing. Then almost nothing again, until something is formed. You move deeper inside. The passage opens into a chamber. The space is larger than expected, cooler, quieter. The ceiling rises above you. The walls hold the silence of centuries. There is no need to fill the room with meaning. The room already has its own. A narrow shaft of light enters from somewhere high above. It falls in a pale golden column onto the floor. Within that light, tiny particles drift slowly. Dust, sand, time. They rise, fall, they turn, shine for a moment, then disappear into shadow. It's like standing inside an hourglass made of stone. Light, silence, and air. The beam of light appears still, but it is moving, very slowly. As the sun moves outside, as the earth turns, as the day changes into something softer. If you watched for only a moment, nothing would seem to happen. But if you could stay long enough, you would see the light cross the chamber, a little at a time. Some movement is too slow to notice, but it is movement all the same. Some changes are too gentle to hear, but they are changes all the same. You notice a small hollow in the stone floor. Inside it, sand has gathered. Not much, only a small mound. A little indoor dune. No wave will reach it. No tide will smooth it. No beach grass will hold it in place. It has gathered here by chance, or by time. Perhaps some quiet agreement between the desert and the pyramid. How long did it take? Many years? Centuries? Millennia? How many tiny winds outside carried one grain near the opening? How many footsteps brought another? How many almost invisible movements were needed? One grain, then another, and another. A pyramid can stand for thousands of years, and still inside it, a little mound of sand can be slowly building. Both are part of the same story. The enormous thing and the tiny thing. The lasting thing and the changing thing. You stand in the chamber and let the stillness settle around you. The pyramid does not feel empty. It feels spacious. It feels like a place that has learned not to hurry. On one wall there are faint markings, lines softened by age, shapes that may have once been birds, or hands, stars, or symbols whose meanings belong to another time. You do not need to understand them. Not everything has to be translated. Some things can simply be honored. Someone once stood here and lifted a tool, shaped a mark into stone, and trusted that the future might arrive. Now here you are, the future, standing quietly before what was left behind. The passage continues. You follow it. The chamber behind you grows dim, and the next corridor is cooler still, with a mineral stillness in the air. The stone seems to hold the memory of night even during the day. Here the light is faint. You move by softness rather than brightness, by the pale outline of the walls and the change in the air, by the feeling that the pyramid knows the way even if you do not. Another room opens ahead, smaller this time, more hidden. A little chamber where the silence feels especially deep. High above, through a narrow opening, the sky is visible. Only a small piece of it. A soft blue fading toward violet. The first hint of evening has reached the desert outside. Inside the chamber, that change arrives slowly, almost secretly. The light on the floor is cool now, moon-colored before the moon has fully risen. Along one wall, sand has settled into a long, soft curve. It looks like a shoreline. A tiny beach inside the pyramid. No waves flow over it. No shells rest along it. No footprints cross it. Only sand, quietly gathered, waiting. You sit beside it. For a while there is nothing to do, nothing to find, nothing to solve. The little indoor beach rests beneath the ancient stone. A few grains sparkle in the pale light. They do not shine like jewels. They shine like sand, and that is enough. You think of the sandcastle on the shore, the shell window, the crooked wall, and the tide returning. You think of the dunes between the beach and desert, the grasses thinning, the sound of the sea becoming memory. You think of the pyramid, still standing, holding its shape beneath the sky. Sand understands both kinds of beauty, the beauty of what lasts and the beauty of what changes. For a moment, the hourglass is there beside you, or perhaps you are simply remembering it. Its grains fall in a thin, shining stream, one grain crossing from above to below. A tiny journey, a quiet descent, a soft arrival. The pyramid is still. The hourglass is moving, and somehow they say the same thing. Take your time. You rise slowly. The little indoor beach remains where it is. The marks on the wall remain. The shaft of pale light remains, or perhaps it has already moved. It's hard to tell. You begin to make your way back through the passage. The darkness no longer feels unknown. The silence no longer feels empty. The stone walls feel familiar now. Each step carries you outward, toward the faint warmth of the desert, toward the ribbon of golden light, toward the opening. The air changes again, warmer, fresher. Touched by the wind, you step outside. The pyramids stand beneath a deepening blue sky. The first stars have appeared. The desert has cooled. The long shadows have softened into evening. Behind you, the entrance rests in shadow. Ahead, the dunes stretch quietly into the distance. You look back once. The pyramid remains, not waiting, not watching, simply standing. A small movement catches your eye near the base of the stone. For just a moment, there's a girl with a basket. She is dressed in a pale fabric touched with gold. Or perhaps it is only the last light on the sand. She bends and notices something near the entrance, a single smooth stone. She smiles, the same smile she gave the shell and the coin. Then the wind lifts a veil of sand across the path, and she is no longer there. Farther ahead on the next dune, the keeper waits. Or perhaps he has only just appeared. The compass glints at his side. He turns toward the horizon. The desert opens before you both. You follow, not walking, not dreaming, drifting across the moonlit sand, carrying the quiet of the pyramid with you. The desert stretches quietly beneath the evening sky. At first, it seems almost perfectly still. The dunes rest beneath the moonlight like gentle waves that have forgotten the sea. Nothing appears to move. Nothing seems to happen. It would be easy to believe the desert is empty. Many people have believed exactly that. But deserts have a quiet way of keeping their secrets until someone slows down enough to notice them. Not because you are tired, simply because there is no reason to hurry. The silence begins to change, or perhaps your listening changes first. The wind brushes softly across the tops of the dunes. Tiny grains slide together, almost too softly to hear. Some dunes sing, not with words or with music, but with a deep, gentle humming that can travel across the sand when the wind and the shape of the dune happen to agree. No two songs are exactly alike. The sound is ancient, older than memory. It comes, it fades, then the quiet returns. A little movement catches your eye. A tiny desert fox appears at the crest of a dune. Its oversized ears listen carefully before each step. Its paws leave delicate footprints that the breeze will slowly erase. The fox pauses for a moment, looks toward you, then continues on its quiet evening journey. Nearby, another set of tracks cross the sand. Not a fox or a bird, perhaps a small lizard or a beetle making its nightly rounds. The desert floor is filled with tiny stories written in footprints. Some will remain until morning, others only until the next gentle wind. Far above, the owl glides silently across the moonlit sky. It circles once, then twice. Its shadow slips over the dunes like a passing cloud. In the distance, a pair of camels rest quietly together. Patient, peaceful. They have carried travelers across these sands for thousands of years. Tonight, they simply rest beneath the stars. The wind reshapes a ripple in the sand. One tiny ridge disappears. Another is born beside it. The dunes are always changing, not because they are restless, but because they are alive. You kneel and let a handful of sand slip slowly through your fingers. Each grain catches a little moonlight before joining the others below. No grain asks where it belongs. Together, they become the desert. Scattered, they become the wind. Gathered, they become a dune. The same grains, a different shape. Far away, something blooms. A single desert flower opening after a rare rain that may have fallen weeks ago beyond the horizon. The desert remembers water long after the clouds have gone. Even here, life waits patiently for exactly the right moment. You continue drifting beneath the stars. The keeper is nowhere to be seen. The girl is nowhere to be seen. Yet somehow you sense they are nearby, as though the desert itself has become your quiet companion now. You realize something unexpected. The desert has never been silent. It has only been whispering. And now you have learned how to listen. The desert rests beneath the stars. Nothing seems to have changed. The dunes still rise and fall in quiet waves. The moon still lays silver across their gentle curves. Yet something is happening. Always. A breeze begins to stir, soft enough that you almost might miss it. The smallest grains begin to move, not together, not all at once. One here, another there. A tiny ripple across the surface of the dune. Then another. The wind is writing, not with ink, with sand. Every morning the desert awakens with a slightly different face. Not because anyone rebuilt it, because the wind has been quietly working through the night. You watch one tiny grain lift into the air, only for a moment. It travels no farther than your hand could reach before settling again. Another grain follows. This one drifts a little farther. Then another. Thousands of tiny journeys, each one almost invisible. Together, they reshape entire landscapes. The dunes are travelers, slow travelers, patient travelers, but travelers all the same. You begin to notice something unexpected. The wind never seems to argue with the sand. Neither one is trying to win. They are simply partners in an endless dance. The wind lifts, the sand settles, the wind returns, the sand answers the same conversation again and again. Sometimes the wind grows stronger, not frightening, determined. Tiny streams of sand begin flowing along the ridges like golden rivers. The moonlight catches them. For a moment, they seem almost alive. Then they settle once more. Far beyond the horizon, another breeze is rising. It carries a handful of desert with it. Not enough to empty the dunes, only enough to continue the journey. Some grains will travel only a few feet. Others may travel across valleys. Some will cross mountains, and others will cross oceans. Every year, enormous clouds of dust drift across the ocean. They help feed distant forests and nourish coral reefs on islands thousands of miles away. A single grain cannot know where its journey will end. Neither can the wind. You lift your hand into the moving air. For just a moment, one tiny grain lands softly upon your palm. You look closely. It is impossible to know where it began. Perhaps beside a pyramid, or in an ancient river. Perhaps on the floor of a vanished sea, or perhaps beneath the feet of a child building a sandcastle long ago. Every grain carries a history. None of them tell it aloud. The breeze becomes softer once again. The grain slips gently from your hand, returning to the desert, or perhaps beginning another journey. Above you, the stars remain exactly where they have always been. Below them, the sand is quietly traveling, not because it is lost, because movement is simply another way of belonging. Far ahead, something catches the moonlight, not another dune or another pyramid. Water, just a narrow ribbon at first, a place where the desert will soon meet another world. Far ahead, the narrow ribbon of water grows wider. You meander toward it. The sand beneath your feet becomes cooler, firmer. Here and there, small reeds rise from the earth. The desert is not ending. It's simply becoming something new. You hear the river before you see it, a soft current moving around smooth stones, the whisper of tall reeds brushing together in the breeze. When the river finally comes into view, it feels as though it has always been there. Wide, patient, timeless. And there at the water's edge, upon a smooth stone pedestal, stands the hourglass, as though it has been quietly waiting for you. Its polished brass frame glows softly in the morning light. Within the glass, countless tiny grains shimmer as they continue their patient journey. Your attention settles upon a single grain, tiny, perfect, unremarkable, and yet you find yourself looking closer and closer still, until the little grain seems to become an entire world. Within it, you see this very river, this gentle bend, these reeds, this quiet current, this little village awakening beside its banks, the woman washing linen, the clay jars, the warm scent of bread baking nearby, the narrow wooden boat slipping silently downstream, everything before you, inside one tiny grain. You lift your gaze from the hourglass. The river before you is exactly the same reeds, the same current, the same gentle bend. You look back at the hourglass. Another grain catches your attention. Again, you look closer. The same river, the same bend, yet something is different. The boats have changed, the clothing has changed, and the village has changed. The centuries have quietly drifted by. You look once more toward the river before you. It matches the little world you have just seen. Not exactly, but wonderfully. As though countless moments have always existed together. One grain, one story, another grain, another story. The hourglass continues its quiet work. You take a single step toward the river. As you do, the hourglass begins to fade. The pedestal, the polished brass, the glass itself. Gone as gently as morning mist. You take another step. Now you are simply here, drifting beside the river. The current moves without haste. Tiny grains of sand travel within it. Some settle along the bank, some continue downstream. Every grain seems to know exactly where it belongs. You notice movement on the opposite shore. A woman kneels at the water's edge. She lifts a length of pale linen from the river. The cloth glistens in the morning light. Nearby, clay jars rest beneath a grove of palms. A little farther away, bread bakes over a small fire. Its warm scent drifts gently across the water. You hear quiet voices. Children laughing somewhere beyond the trees. A narrow wooden boat slips silently along the current. Its oars barely disturb the surface. Everything feels peaceful, ancient. You continue drifting. The river bends. Birds rise from the reeds. A breeze carries the cool scent of fresh water. Far away, tap, tap, tap. Someone shapes stone. The sound is so distant it seems almost part of the wind. You round another gentle bend, the same river, the same palms, the same birds. Yet the village is different. The boats are shaped differently. The clothing has changed. The clay jars are not quite the same. A small stone landing now reaches into the river where only reeds had stood before. The river continues flowing. Nothing seems surprised. Not the birds or the water, not even the wind. You drift onward. Another bend, the reeds sway, the river glitters. A fisherman lifts his nets. Farther along, another village appears, different again. The sounds are familiar, the people are not. The river keeps no calendar, it simply keeps flowing. The sun rises a little higher, or perhaps it does not. The light changes, yet somehow remains the same. The river feels older than memory, older than kingdoms or names. You watch the current carry tiny grains of sand around a fallen branch. The grains settle, then lift again, always moving, always returning. You smile. Nothing about it feels impossible anymore. It feels exactly as it should. You continue downstream. The river grows wider. The air becomes softer. A faint scent of salt begins to mingle with the fresh water. Somewhere beyond the next bend, another world is waiting. The river widens until it almost forgets it was ever a river. Its gentle course slows. The banks drift farther apart. The reeds become fewer. The air grows softer. A faint scent of salt mingles with the fresh water. Ahead, the river meets the sea, not with celebration or with fanfare, simply with quiet acceptance. Fresh water greets salt water. Neither one disappears. They simply become something larger together. You drift where they meet. Beneath the surface, the sand has changed once again. The grains are no longer loose beneath your feet. They rest closer together now, held gently by the water. The little ridges you see beneath the surface are not so different from the dunes you crossed in the desert. Only now they've been shaped by waves instead of wind. The same grains, a different sculptor. You kneel beside the water and let your fingers drift slowly through the sand beneath the surface. The grains slip quietly around your hand. Some sparkle like tiny crystals. Some are nearly white. Some glow with soft shades of gold. Others are tiny fragments of shells that have been worn smooth through centuries of gentle rolling beneath the waves. Every grain has traveled a different path before arriving here. Some once rested high in distant mountains. Others journeyed down quiet rivers. Some were once part of ancient cliffs. Others began as tiny shells upon the floor of the sea itself. Different beginnings, one shoreline. A gentle wave reaches the beach. It slides across the sand, then quietly returns to the sea. As it retreats, thousands of tiny grains travel with it. The next wave arrives. it leaves thousands more behind. Not the very same grains, new travelers, new arrivals. The shoreline is always changing, not because anyone is rebuilding it, but because the sea never stops shaping it. The journey of a grain does not end when it reaches the ocean. It simply begins another chapter. You begin to notice tiny ripples beneath the shallow water, each one carved patiently into the sand. Some no wider than your hand, others stretch far across the sandy bottom. Light dances across their gentle curves. The sunlight moves with the waves above. The patterns shift, then settle, then shift again. Tiny shells rest between the ripples. Some are smooth as polished marble, others carry delicate spirals. A few are no larger than a grain of rice. Each one has become part of the quiet conversation between sea and sand. A little crab appears from a tiny doorway beneath the beach. It pauses, then scurries sideways across the ripples before disappearing once again. Not far away, a horseshoe crab leaves a winding trail behind it. The trail will remain only until the tide returns. Nothing seems concerned with permanence, only with the quiet beauty of this moment. You notice dozens of tiny openings scattered across the sandy bottom. At first, they seem empty. Then you realize little clams rest safely beneath the sand. Tiny creatures breathe quietly below the surface. The beach is alive in ways that are easy to overlook, just as the desert is. You continue drifting. The water slowly becomes deeper. Your feet still touch the sand, only lightly now. The sea begins carrying a little more of your weight. Walking slowly becomes floating. The ripples beneath you soften. The sandy bottom stretches outward like a peaceful landscape. Ahead, the water grows bluer, clearer, calmer. You look down once more. The sand below no longer feels like the end of its journey. It feels like another beginning. The water grows deeper almost without notice. One moment your feet trailed lightly upon the sandy bottom, then they hardly seem to touch at all. The sea carries you gently, not upward, not downward, simply onward. Sunlight filters softly through the clear water above. It sways with every gentle movement of the waves. The light dances across the sand below. Not in straight lines, in living patterns, always changing, always returning. After a while, you no longer notice the surface. It is simply another sky above you. The sandy world continues beneath you. Wide, quiet, peaceful. The bottom is not flat. Little dunes rise and fall beneath the sea. Some are no larger than a pillow. Others stretch far into the blue distance. The waves above shape them day after day, just as the wind shapes the dunes of the desert. The same grains, another artist. You drift lower, not because you choose to, but because it feels perfectly natural. Your fingers pass gently through the water, then lightly across the sand. It feels different here. Cooler, silkier. The grains move more slowly beneath the sea than they did in the desert wind. Tiny shells rest everywhere. Some complete, some broken into beautiful fragments, each one slowly becoming tomorrow's sand. A little current passes quietly across the bottom. It lifts a few grains, carries them a little way, then lets them settle once more. You notice delicate trails winding across the sand, some no wider than a thread, others looping in graceful circles. Tiny creatures have passed this way, leaving only gentle signatures behind. Nearby, a small stingray is almost completely hidden beneath the sand. Only its eyes remain visible. The sand protects it, just as it protected the little clams along the shore. A tiny fish pauses above the stingray for a moment, then quietly swims away. Farther along, a starfish rests upon the sandy floor. It does not seem to be going anywhere, yet somehow it belongs perfectly. Seagrasses sway gently in the current. Their roots reach down into the sand, holding the shoreline beneath the water, just as the beach grasses hold the dunes beside the sea. You smile. The sand has been making homes all along, in deserts, along rivers, upon beaches. Now beneath the sea, the quiet world continues. The water grows a little deeper. The sunlight becomes softer. Blue gives way to deeper shades of turquoise, then sapphire. The sand changes too. Some places are bright and smooth. Others are scattered with tiny coral fragments. Some grains are pale as ivory, others almost pink. Some carry flecks of black from long-forgotten volcanoes. Each one has traveled farther than anyone could ever know. You drift onward. A gentle current carries you across another wide, sandy plain. It seems endless. Then, far ahead, something interrupts the smooth horizon. Not a rock or coral, something shaped by hands, only partly visible. The upper edge of a weathered wooden mast rises quietly from the sand. Beyond it, another shape, then another. The sea has been keeping stories, patiently, one grain at a time. The weathered mast rises quietly from the sandy floor. It leans ever so slightly, patiently, as though it has long since forgotten the storms that once carried it here. You drift a little closer. The sand is gathered gently around the base, not hiding it, not revealing it, simply resting there. The sea has been caring for this place for a very long time. The wooden beams are softened by the water. Tiny shells have made their homes upon them. Sea grasses sway gently nearby. Small fish move in and out of the quiet openings between the timbers. Nothing feels abandoned, only changed. The ship has become part of the sea. You continue drifting. More of it slowly appears. A curved railing, a weathered wheel, the outline of a lantern, half buried beneath the sand. Some parts remain visible, others have disappeared beneath countless patient grains. The sand has never hurried. One tide, one current. The sea has covered the ship exactly as the desert slowly gathered around the pyramids. Different places, the same gentle patience. You notice something peeking out from beside one of the beams. At first it seems to be another smooth stone. Then the light shifts. A coin. Its surface glows faintly beneath the water. Not brightly. Softly, almost shyly. Nearby rests another. Then another. Some are nearly hidden. Others lie upon the sand as though they have only just arrived. Not because the sea has decided to reveal them today, but because the sand is always moving. A grain settles, another lifts. Tiny changes, day after day, century after century. Sometimes a treasure disappears, then it quietly returns to the light. The sea is never finished arranging its collections. You drift onward. A small wooden chest rests nearby. Its lid has long since opened. Inside are polished beads, a silver spoon, fragments of colorful pottery, a brass button, tiny glass bottles, a necklace tangled gently among the shells. Nothing shines more brightly than anything else. Everything has become part of the same quiet story. Gold, glass, shell, stone. The sea has welcomed them all equally. A current moves softly across the sand. A few grains slide away from something half buried beneath the chest. Only a corner is visible. You wait. The current passes. More grains settle again. The object is hidden once more. You smile. Not every treasure needs to be uncovered. Some stories are happiest where they are. You continue drifting through the quiet wreck. There's no feeling of loss here, no feeling of tragedy, only time, only change, only gentle belonging. You remember the girl on the shore, the shell she placed carefully into her basket, the smooth stone she noticed outside the pyramid, the simple joy she found in ordinary things. Perhaps she understands treasures better than anyone. The sea has never measured value the way people sometimes do. A shell, or a pearl, or a smooth pebble, or a golden coin. Here beneath the water, they all rest together, none asking to be more important than the other, none wishing to be noticed first. The sand has given each one of them the same quiet kindness. You drift slowly toward the far side of the ship. The sandy bottom stretches outward once more. The wreck grows softer behind you, gradually becoming part of the landscape again. Ahead, the sea floor changes. The pale sand begins to glow with scattered colors. Soft lavender, warm coral, gentle gold. Something living is growing there. The next quiet world is beginning to appear. The sandy floor stretches quietly beyond the old ship. The water becomes warmer, clearer. The sunlight reaches a little farther here. Tiny ripples continue across the bottom, patient as ever. But something new begins to appear. At first, only scattered pieces. A small branch of coral no larger than your hand. A rounded stone touched with soft green. A shell resting among delicate grasses. Then another, and another. Before long, the sandy floor begins to bloom, not with flowers, with living color. Gentle corals rise from the sand like quiet gardens. Some spread outward into delicate fans. Others grow in rounded shapes like ancient trees. Some resemble tiny fingers reaching peacefully toward the light. Soft shades of cream, golden amber, blush pink, lavender, pale blue. The colors seem to glow rather than shine. The sand cradles each one, holding their roots gently beneath the sea. Tiny fish move carefully among the branches, not hurried, simply at home. They disappear into little openings, then emerge again somewhere unexpected. The gardens seem endless, yet every coral began somewhere very small. One quiet beginning, patiently growing, year after year. The sand beneath them never asks to be noticed. It is content to simply support what grows above. You drift between the coral gardens. The current moves slowly here. Sea grasses sway in peaceful rhythm. A seahorse clings gently to one slender stem, barely moving, perfectly content to let the water do the dancing. Farther ahead, a sea turtle glides peacefully over the sandy bottom. Its shadow passes softly across the ripples below. It does not disturb them, only greets them as it goes. Tiny fish gather around a colorful sponge. then quietly swim away. The turtle continues its ancient journey, as countless turtles have done before. You notice something remarkable. The sand here is different once again. Some grains are made from weathered coral, others from shells, some from distant mountains carried long ago by rivers, and others from ancient volcanoes. Thousands of different journeys meeting here beneath the sea, becoming one peaceful shore, one peaceful garden, one peaceful world. A little farther on, the sunlight catches something perfectly round. A single pearl rests inside an open shell. Its surface glows softly, never demanding attention, only reflecting the quiet light around it. Nearby rests another shell, empty, just as beautiful. You smile. Beauty has never belonged to only one thing. The sea has been reminding you of that all along. The coral gardens continue. Some places are wide open. Others feel like quiet little rooms beneath the sea. Everywhere the sand remains, supporting, holding, welcoming, never asking for recognition, only offering a place where life can begin. You drift onward. The gardens gradually become fewer. The water grows deeper, the sunlight softer. Ahead, the water grows quieter. The gentle current becomes almost still. The sandy floor stretches peacefully beneath you. The coral gardens slowly fade into the distance. The old ship rests quietly here. The sea has kept it safe. Every grain continues its patient journey. Nothing has ended. Everything has simply become part of something larger. You drift upward, not quickly, not because you're leaving, only because the water becomes lighter, brighter. The sunlight grows warmer once again. Soon the gentle rhythm of the waves becomes familiar. Your feet touch the sand again, soft, cool, comforting. You are standing once more beside the quiet shore. The lighthouse glows peacefully in the distance. The tide moves gently against the beach. The same smooth stone pedestal rests where it always has been, and upon it stands the hourglass. It seems exactly as you remember, as though no time has passed at all, or perhaps every moment has passed together. You step closer. The polished brass catches the quiet light. Within the glass, only one tiny grain remains. You watch. There's no hurry. No reason to rush the moment. The little grain begins its gentle descent. Slowly, patiently, quietly. It falls through the narrow glass, a journey completing itself. One tiny grain, one endless story. Then, stillness, For a long moment, nothing moves. The tide breathes softly upon the shore. The lighthouse watches from the distance. The beach rests peacefully beneath the open sky. Then, without sound, the keeper is there, as though he has always been standing nearby. He lifts the hourglass with quiet hands. He looks at it for a moment, not with pride, not with sadness, only with understanding. Then gently he turns it over. The first grain begins to fall. The keeper smiles, not because something has ended, but because something has begun. He places the hourglass back upon its pedestal, then quietly walks along the shoreline. Before long, he is no longer there, and neither is the hourglass. Only the sea remains. A little while later, someone else approaches. The girl. She walks slowly along the beach, noticing the quiet treasures the tide has left behind. A smooth shell, a rounded pebble, a piece of sea glass softened by countless waves. She smiles at each one, not because they are rare, because they have been noticed. As she passes the pedestal, something catches her eye. Resting upon the stone is a single grain of sand. Tiny, perfect, almost impossible to see. She pauses, then smiles the very same smile she gave the shell, the smooth stone, and the little coin. With the greatest care, she lifts the tiny grain, places it gently into her basket, and continues walking down the quiet shore. The lighthouse glows. The tide reaches the beach. One gentle wave rolls softly onto the sand, then quietly retreats, carrying away the imprint of the pedestal and the footprints of the girl, and the place where the last tiny grain rested.